here not to talk politics. We are here to present a future to you. A future of a country that is so rich, endowed, and highly populated, very dynamic, unique in its culture, unique in our tradition, unique in our ethnicity. A country we determine that we make our prosperity possible if only we use that God-given opportunity of diversity for prosperity of Nigerians. We're sure to do that. We're not poor in knowledge. We are not poor in human resources. We are not poor in capital resources. We're only poor in management and leadership. And that is why I ran for president, to help all of us mold the soul of our country in the right direction.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Sam Adeyemi, strategic leadership consultant, joins us now. I know you may be wondering, are we talking about the same person? Well, yes, he is. I guess he will start with telling us what he's been up to. Good morning, Dr. Adeyemi. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Chamberlain, and thank you for having me on the program today.
Yes, indeed, and we appreciate your keeping up very in the wee hours of the morning for this particular interview. Perhaps we should start by telling us, I mean, yes, we know day start, but what have you been up to lately?
Well, I have been pushing my leadership message on a global dimension. Just about a week ago, we hosted a conference in Maryland, USA. We call it the Dear Leader Live Conference, where we had loads and loads of leaders, and we were sharing the leadership message because leadership is probably the world's greatest need right now. When you are dealing with uncertainty, unpredictability at the level at which you have it in our world, dealing with a lot of disruptions, what you need is leadership.
I mean, I don't know if you heard the president there talk about saying that we are poor in leadership, I think it's in management, and so raises yet again, the leadership question. Why do you think we struggle with getting these aspects of our lives right in this country, first and foremost?
Well, thank you. I think the challenge is that when we try to deal with the issue, we cut leaves, we don't dig out the roots. First, I'll summarize it in one word: culture. Experts tell us now that culture will eat your strategy for lunch. As a consultant, one major thing that can be frustrating is for you to advise your clients. We consultants do that a lot. We submit reports. But we've come to find out that most of the time, organizations and even nations are unable to use the advice that we give. Because while the leader may be excited about the prospect of change, when they get to the point where they really want to execute the change, then they confront culture. Let me simplify it. Why do many people make New Year resolutions and they eventually find out 2 or 3 weeks into the new year that they are back to their old selves? Habits. What habit is to the individual is exactly what culture is to a group, organization, or nation. Before long, we're back to our default ways of thinking and ways of behavior, and they frustrate any attempt for us to create change. It's the same thing for us when it comes to leadership. We have a leadership culture in Africa. And it's not only Africa, all over the world, you have leadership culture. It's different. But for Africa, it's peculiar. And my hypothesis is that our original leadership culture is built on the monarchical structure of government, right? So you find out that in that system, the leader is superior to the people that are being led. The leader is powerful, and the follower is almost powerless, almost a slave. In fact, I come from the Yoruba culture. And when I look at the words that we use in leadership, everything revolves around the power of the king. We call the market Oja Oba. We call the farm Okuoba. Even government, we call it Ijo Oba. Okay, so the king's farm, the king's market, and government is the king's assembly. So until we restructure that in our mindsets, you will find out in our families, in our businesses, even in government, and interestingly, even our religious institutions, it's that structure of government where the leader is superior to the one being led. And as long as that is there, management of resources becomes a problem, because the people at the top who are so powerful use that power, usually political power, to channel economic resources to benefit themselves and those close to them. So we are unable to make optimum use of our resources. That's what management is about. Optimum use of resources. The most valuable resources of any country, most valuable assets are human beings. And when it comes to that, we're also underusing the potential in human lives.
In 2015, when we hosted you, you also said cultural approach to leadership is a problem in Nigeria. And I know you've interacted with several people over there, so I'm just wondering, several questions in my head about this. I mean, how deep-rooted is this? Does language affect it? Because here, when they recruit persons, for instance, in leadership, in politics, for instance, they say they're looking for the best people. Some of them have trainings overseas. They come back here, but we're still grappling with some challenges here. So does that suggest that we're not making any progress whatsoever?
Well, the indices are there for us to see. You were speaking earlier from the news about the exchange rate of the naira to the dollar, that it's crossed the threshold of 1,000 naira to the dollar.
Yeah.
And I remember that just 25 years ago, 1998, the naira was 22 naira, if I'm correct, 22 naira to the dollar. So it's continuous depreciation. Nations compete for resources against other nations. We're not doing well. We're incapable of doing so. That's why we need to deal with the culture. We are not addressing it yet. In fact, when you need to change people's mindsets, change behavior so that you can get the results that you need, that exactly is when you need leadership. So you ask, who really is addressing the leadership problem? It's good we have elections, right? But winning an election does not make you a good leader. It gives you the opportunity to lead. Where are we learning to lead, really? Is leadership in the curriculum in our schools yet? How many leadership schools do we have? those of us that occupy leadership positions, how many books have we read on leadership? How many trainings have we attended on leadership? Where have we served as apprentices? So we really need to address leadership development. I'll tell you what makes it different, maybe in a climate like the United States, for example. When you're in primary school or secondary school, they're already teaching you leadership. You don't teach a kid that much theory on leadership. It's practicals. They take them out to orphanages, take them out, they insist on them volunteering, okay? When you apply to go to university, they say you should write a personal statement. One major thing they're looking for there is your volunteering. If you don't volunteer, they know you are going to be a liability on the society. They're not likely to give you admission. They want to see where you have served for free, because leadership is about service. So when you have a society where that is absent, and there's a lot of poverty, a lot of deprivation, and everybody's dream is just to be able to break through, to, focus on what to get. You allow some, and then somebody like that becomes a managing director, a CEO, a governor. It doesn't matter. The major preoccupation will be consuming resources. So I'm saying that at a national level, we need to act with urgency, or else we just keep thinking it won't get worse. But here we are.
Dr.
This
Adeyemi,
new political, right?
If I may come in here, Nels out here. I was going to ask you the question of differentiating leadership from management. But you kind of like struck it when you said winning an election doesn't make you a leader. Because in the president's statement, it says Nigeria is not poor in resources. Nigeria is blessed all around. But the question is leadership and management, which some will say they are two different sides of the same coin. So at what point, how do we manage this?
Well, management, again, is optimum use of resources. Now, some resources are tangible, some are intangible. Resources include money, resources include equipment, it includes property, right? And then people. The leadership side focuses mainly on people. Everything rises and falls on the quality of people, right? Management ensures efficiency, right? That you're getting the most value out of the resources you have. You're using the least money to get the most results, the least number of people, the least equipment, the least amount of time to get your best resources. Leadership, on the other hand, like I said, focuses more on people and is more strategic. Stephen R. Covey described it this way in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you have to cut a bush, the manager is the one that ensures that he measures out, or he or she measures out the portions of grass to cut, gives each person the tool to use, make sure they are sharp, comes back to make sure that you cut the correct height of the grass. He said leadership is for someone to find the tallest tree in that bush and to climb it to the top to even be sure we're cutting the right bush in the first place. So that's why leadership needs to come first, because it's the one that has the widest view and actually considers the future, helps us to take a position now so that we can get the best results we can get for the future. We need leadership desperately.
Okay, so in our climb now, we've had people come into different positions. You talked about the structure we have, which is the monarchical structure, so to speak. And it looks as if they're not ready to budge from that position of I'm in charge, everybody else falls under, to even give room for the eggheads that have been brought in to do the bit they need to do. Again, I ask the question, how do we move from this? How? Who would even listen and bail the cat so that we can move forward? Because we're kind of like in a circle, going around the same circle, the same mountain over and over again. How do we move?
Thank you. We seem to be in a conundrum, honestly. And we are amazing people. We have phenomenal amount. Everybody in the family is sick. Everybody knows everybody is sick, right? But you need a doctor to help you diagnose what the problem is so that we can prescribe the right medicine. So if this sickness is not going away, maybe we've not even been able to diagnose what the real problem is. Who is supposed to create the solution? So when you are dealing with culture, it's not only about the people occupying position, it's about the whole society. It's about the whole country, right? So first, the definition of leadership has shifted. It's not just about occupying a position. Leadership is the ability to influence one or more people to achieve a goal. Once you bring the definition down to influence, then you realize leadership happens at all levels. All of us are into leadership. If you ever persuaded your friend to go with you to buy sweets, you led your friend, right? So we should not discount the influence of parents, the influence of teachers in schools, the influence of bosses in the office, the influence of even friends, right? So leadership is influence. Secondly, leadership is a set of skills, character qualities and skills. They can be learned. This was what changed my own life. I never thought that I had leadership capacity until an elderly reverend gentleman in my church gave me a book to read, the first book ever I would read on leadership, Christian Leadership by Donald S. Altman. And the most important thing I took from the book was the argument of the author that those old ideas that few people are born to lead, everybody else is born to follow, as much as they were pushed by powerful philosophers like Socrates, and so on, he said they have expired. Everyone has the ability to lead. He listed the qualities of leaders. When I looked at them, I had some of them. Then he said the ones you don't have, you can cultivate. My call, therefore, is to all of us. This idea of, abandoning the responsibility for influence to people that occupy positions is not going to help us. All of us right now need to cultivate our leadership skills. It is the average leadership quotient of the nation that will determine how fast we move. The people in the elite class, there is nowhere they have deliberately, empowered citizens like that, especially when in a climate like ours, there's so much poverty and deprivation, you want to run away from it as far as possible. No, nobody is going to empower others. It is possible to do so. The people in the Middle East are doing it with monarchical systems because they have empathy for their citizens. They are ready to empower them. But in our own culture, especially on our continent, we've not seen it happen yet, which means we then need all of us to develop our leadership capacity. When we do it, we will hold leaders accountable. Remember, in the monarchical system, accountability is very weak. In Yoruba culture, we call our king Kabiyosi. Nobody can hold you accountable to do anything. Now that's misery, loaded, raised to power 1,000. We need to hold leaders accountable. That's what you're supposed to do in a democracy because all of us are equal, from president to citizen. So these are the places where we need to begin to shift the ideas. And waiting for a governor or president to do that may not pay us on the long run. All of us actually need to do it. That's why I'm here.
Well, Dr. Adeyemi, it's interesting that you touched on the monarchical system in the Middle East because that's the question I was going to ask you first. Because in the Middle East, just as you mentioned, they have monarchical systems that work for them. I don't know whether they were ever under any kind of colonialism or anything. Maybe that is why they always had their own system. What is it, if there is anything, that can be compared to their own monarchical system that works for them and our own that seems to not be working for us? Add that to the fact that now we have put democracy in the mix.
Well, thank you so much. We want to practice democracy, but we don't have a foundation to build it on. I'll say that it comes down to values. Values, the standards of behavior, the principles that a society has adopted for itself. Now, I'll tell you that human history has not favored monarchical rule. You remember what Lord Aldous Huxley said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Human nature has not done well with the monarchical structure of government. It's like it makes people crazy. What we have in the Middle East is fantastic. And I want to say that it's something that happened gradually, started basically with the United Arab Emirates. And when neighboring countries saw the development, and then Saudi Arabia, and when neighboring countries saw what was going on, they too began to adopt the changes gradually because the quality of life, improved drastically in the UAE. They just happen to have benevolent, what you call benevolent dictators, so to speak. But in Africa, honestly, we have not shown the capacity. We've not shown the capacity yet to demonstrate that with power, we can have empathy and we can empower the average citizen. So this is what happened. Most of the developed part of the world is under democratic rule. That's the truth, right? That's why they say democracy is the best form of government. The change happened for them, started for them from France with the French Revolution, right? The citizens got tired. They got tired, sacked the monarchy, and then established some new values. One of them principally being equality. One of the three basic, values in France, equality. And the neighboring countries were compelled to adjust. The United States then started on a brand new note altogether, and you will notice we adjudge all these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. That's the foundation the US was built on. We were not built on that foundation. So we actually need to rethink right now, what do we want to do? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to go from here? What are our values, right? What are our values? We have values in our national anthem. We have values in our national pledge, but we wrote them because countries are supposed to have national anthem and national pledge. They really don't guide our behavior. We have love there. We have honesty, other beautiful values. So I would say it comes down to values. We've not demonstrated the courage needed to shift our belief systems and our behavior when it comes to leadership.
It sounds to me, Dr. Adeyemi, you're saying this is almost hopeless. Nigeria is 63 in October, on October 1, Sunday to be precise, and we've been talking about the same thing over the years. I remember interviewing one of the foremost nationalists in the country at some point, and I asked him the pointed question, what did you guys have in mind when you were asking for independence of Nigeria? And he told us that they didn't have anything in mind. They just wanted the colonial masters to go. And the same thing has repeated itself down through the ages. We just wanted the military to go, the military left, and then now we're struggling with democracy and all of those things. So the question that I want to ask you then is, there can be no leadership without vision. Help us understand whether or not that is the truth. If that is the truth, who bears the cart in terms of channeling or coming up with a vision for the country? It's a decentralized leadership system we have. We have 36 state governors that are supposedly independent. We have 774 local governments and a good number of LCDAs that have chairmen of local government as well. So as a nation, how do we come up with that vision that everybody in the state must line up under? How do we come up with that?
Thank you so much. At the end of the day, vision is a picture, right? The mental picture of the preferable future. God gave every single one of us imagination. He gave us our minds, starting from us that are part of this discussion. So what do leaders do? They use their imagination. Is the situation hopeless? Absolutely not. See, what's the essence of leadership? Service, problem solving, right? So while everybody else runs away from problems, leaders actually run towards problems. That's my call to every Nigerian today. Let's run towards our problems. Let's run towards this issue. Leaders leverage challenges to unleash creativity, not only theirs, but the creativity of everybody else. So I'm calling right now to everyone that is a part of this discussion. use your imagination right now. What's the vision supposed to be? Let's have a picture of a developed Nigeria. Simple. Why are young Nigerians shipping out to other parts of the world? Where are they shipping out to? Better environments, developed economies. Good.
Well, my apologies, Dr. Adeyemi. My sincere apologies. You said this leadership thing we have to have a vision. The question is how? Please don't answer that question yet, because it's okay. We have a generation of people coming behind us. You, Dr. Additional, and a number of people are saying young people are not liabilities; they are assets. But then, as we all know, it seems that everyone is disillusioned. Who will come up with the vision that they will line up behind? That's the question that you would answer, please, when we return from this break. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Dr. Sam Adeyemi is still with us this morning. Strategic leadership consultant joins us from the USA. Well, so you may want to take that question on now in the light of a decentralized system, a highly disillusioned population, a population of young people that have little or no hope in the country. Everyone wants to get out at the next opportunity. How do we come up with a vision that everyone, particularly young people, the largest demography in the country, would buy into and carry on by themselves?
Thank you so much, Ayam. You know, during our commercial break, hope was rekindled in my heart just watching the commercials, seeing that there's a program, the Democracy 101.5, seeing that we have a conference like the platform coming up and so on. You see, when change begins, it is people that are strategic that catch it on the fringes before it overruns everything. Most people continue with their lives normally thinking that nothing is changing. Honestly, the change has begun. I'll tell you, for example, so talking about the vision thing, right? The vision issue. It's vision actually that makes the heart of a leader. If you take vision out of a leader, there's nothing left. Because someone defined vision as simply moving people from point A to point B. If there's no movement, if there's no improvement, there's absolutely no leadership. And the thing that you sell, you communicate, that makes people willing to go with you from point A to point B is that vision. It's that picture of a better future. You ask, who is supposed to create it? It always starts with individuals. And remember what I said, leadership happens at all levels. Once we abdicate that responsibility for being leaders, we keep empowering the people that have power already. If they are not willing, to change things, then we're stuck. I'm saying it starts with us as individuals. I have had the vision of a developed Nigeria now for some 2 decades. In fact, I became so convinced about it that in our office, we took pictures from developed parts of the world, did some editing, right? Took out the names of other countries, the names of others, their streets, put the names of our own streets in Lagos and other parts of Nigeria. And those pictures look like what Nigeria will look like in the future. Now, what's the next thing a leader does? You communicate that vision, you share it. So right now, the younger people have tools. We have tools now that were not around 25, 30 years ago. We have social media. Your phone right now is your own radio station. It's your TV station. You can push out your message. So it needs to be bottom up and top down. There are amazing people in government who have vision for a developed Nigeria. They need to speak up. Just occupying a position is not enough. They need to leverage their position to speak up. If I was a governor, I would address my state every Sunday evening or Monday. It may be 5 minutes, but I would sell the idea of development. If I was president of Nigeria, I would address the nation every Sunday evening or every Monday, right? Okay, I'm not the president of Nigeria, but I'm the president of my house. So I have social media, platforms, and I can share my ideas from there. I'm asking right now everyone needs to use their imagination, see that new Nigeria, and begin to adjust your own life, to that new Nigeria, that developed Nigeria. I studied engineering. When you want to construct a house, what do? You start with a vision. You must have an idea of what you want to construct, then you tell the architect, they help you to draw it out. But before you draw that blueprint, what do? You identify your needs. What do Nigerians need? We're different, we're diverse. So we need to provide for, we need to accommodate everybody's interests in creating that developed Nigeria. I would say at the level of government, we need to have that national discussion. That's the starting point, right? As individuals, we need to hold those pictures of a developed Nigeria, and then we need to come together. If we will ask the current administration at all levels, nothing else, the one thing we need to ask for is that discussion. We need to agree on where Nigeria is going. If somebody tells me, I want my life to change, I want my finances to change, the first question I will ask them, who do you want to become? And you need to have a benchmark. Have somebody who is achieving something close to it already that you will benchmark against. Who do we want to become as Nigerians? That's a big question right now, and we need to all discuss that.
Pastor Sam, you make it sound so simple, and many Nigerians listening to you will wonder, yet, why is it so difficult? Bukola here, good morning, sir. I'd like to look at it from a more expansive point of view, bearing Africa in mind. And, junta leader in Guinea had cause to address the UN General Assembly just days ago. And here's what he said to world leaders unabashedly. He said, Africa is suffering from a governance model that has been imposed on it, a model that is good and effective to the West, but is difficult to adapt to our realities, our customs, and environment. It is time to stop lecturing us and stop treating us with condescension like children, he said, adding that Africans were mature enough to design their own models of governance. And, I'd like to know what your deductions from this, are. Bearing in mind also, part of the groundswell of support that is following, trailing coups in the western belt of Africa, saying that, Africa is better off with benevolent dictators like, the Rwandan president and, others reminiscent of Thomas Sankara in Burkina Faso. How do you weigh in on this, Pastor Sam?
Thank you so much, Bukola. Now, those submissions are fantastic. I agree with them to the extent that the people in the western part of the world don't really understand African culture. I said earlier on, leadership is moving people from point A to point B. If my point A is not your point A, you actually don't know where I'm supposed to start from. You won't be able to design the path for me to get to point B. That's if that's really your desire. The average person in the Western world does not know what it means to have power cut 10 hours, 12 hours, 20 hours a day. They have no idea what it means to go down to the river to use buckets to fetch water on your head. They have no idea. They have no idea. When they say shower, it's really shower. In our own part of the world, in Africa, the way most people have shower is you fetch the water in a bucket, you scoop it with a bowl, you pour the water on your head, that's your shower. So they honestly cannot design solutions for us because they don't even understand where we're coming from. However, when it comes to the solutions, you spoke about the coups and the military coups, and that takes me back to the issue of culture. I'll point out one thing. In Africa, whether it is military, monarchy, democracy, or even theocracy, is the same result. I'm not excited about the coups simply because, not because I hate the military or everybody keeps saying, oh, democracy is the best form of government. No, I don't go with all those mantras. That's why I went to school to study leadership. The underlying thing that undergirds everything is that culture where leaders are not accountable, where the person that is leading is too powerful for you to control. It doesn't work with human nature. So Africa we need to create our own solution. again, I tell you that from a leadership perspective, problems are not problems. They are opportunities. Africa has the opportunity to unleash our creativity. We need to decide which form of government we want. Right now, we're having a mix of democracy and theocracy. Democracy and monarchy, right? We're adding military in the mix now. So we need to decide if democracy will ever work. Let me give you an idea. One of the values that must undergird it is equality. I mentioned it earlier on. So the question I'd like to ask is, in Nigeria, does every person believe in equality, that all humans are equal? Even the citizens don't believe it. That's why if you believe it and you want to go lead with it in Nigeria, you will still fail. Because the people don't believe that they are equal, that they have equal rights with the leader. We're still slaves in our mindset. It's the monarchical system in our mindset. Okay, so you can't escape it. Education is the starting point. We need to create that enlightenment. And I'm saying the media has been democratized. There was a time when you went on only one TV station or radio station, you were addressing the whole country. That day is gone. In Nigeria now it's democratized. And I'm saying everybody should use their power. They start from there. Power is first imagined. The more you use it, the more it expands. Sitting down, complaining, moaning, and feeling powerless will never change anybody's situation, right? Run against the problem. Use your imagination, use your creativity. Control what you can control. Don't focus on what you can't control. The little bit of control you have, your own imagination. Once I started believing that it was possible to live a better life, when I started seeing myself, who do you want to become? I defined it. I caught pictures from magazines, stuck them on the wall in my bedroom to shift my thinking, to see a new me. My life started changing. So I'm here, we're discussing today, right?
So that brings us back to the point about vision. Pardon me there. So bearing in mind all of those cultural impediments that you've talked about, you know, our traditional monarchical system of government, in fact, our fault lines, you know, when we come down home to Nigeria, do you see that vision that is being driven by the new administration? And if there's no vision, you know, what direction should we begin to look at?
Oh, well, I know we have had attempts before at discussing the direction of our country as a nation. We've made attempts before. We need to go back to it. I've not had that vision yet. I'll tell you that. It's not something that somebody is supposed to impose on us. It's got to be a discussion because we're too diverse. It's got to be a discussion. That's why I said earlier on, if we don't get anything from this administration at all levels, we need to ask for that discussion. We need to agree on where we're going. We're like, 14 people in a bus, that have not agreed on where they're going. 14 people going in 14 different directions. We will always have crises. Our leaders will be managing crises. There will be quarreling, ethnic, whatever. That's what we'll be having, because vision is the basis for unity. We need to agree on who we are becoming, who Nigerians are becoming, what Nigeria is becoming in the future. And it needs a discussion where we will speak to one another, not shout at one another, but speak and discuss with respect. Okay, until then, I've not had the vision yet. The vision is not something somebody is supposed to impose on us. The vision is something that we need to discuss. Let me say also that nation building is not a day's job. So anybody that is expecting Nigeria to change within 4 years is deceiving themselves. I rely again on my training as an engineer. If you're going to build a bungalow, build a shallow foundation, and then within 3 or 4 days, we see your building coming up. If you're going to build a skyscraper, you will be down there digging a big hole, pouring concrete for months. People will wonder what's happening to you. But once you are through with that foundation level, you will be adding layer after layer after layer, floor after floor. A new Nigeria can't be built in one day. The people, those of us in the generation that create the vision, we need to accept we're foundation layers. That vision needs to be there for 50 years, 100 years. We're dealing with a principle that was discovered by a Harvard professor, the law of time perspective. The longer the time you take into consideration while making your plans and taking action, the higher you rise. The person or nation or organization that plans for 10 years will always rise higher than the one that is planning for 10 days or 10 months. It's a law. We can't break that principle. It is that principle that has the power to break us. So we need to plan 50 years. So you then know that as a governor or president, your job is to lay a solid part of this foundation. Those of us that are around now also need to know, we need to lay that foundation. We need to think long term. Let's have a discussion on who we want to become. Nigeria needs to become a developed country. And I promise you, the culture is consistent across Africa. When we crack the code for Nigeria, we automatically cracked it for the rest of Africa.
Food for thought there, and we hope fatigue doesn't get in as far as that discussion is concerned, because we've had that discussion over and over again through the years. Pastor Sam, it would be remiss of me not to ask this question. Just one more from me. We'd like to know the status of your citizenship. If you're coming back to Nigeria, or if you're in and out, particularly with a view to investing in Nigeria. We know that you've put some structure on ground where leadership is concerned in the past. But Nigeria does need you, and when you are outside the country, it's a brain drain for Nigeria. Do we hope to get Pastor Sam back as brain gain in the country?
Thank you, Bukola, for asking the question. You see, the point is, things have changed. Technology has changed everything. You can be anywhere in the world now, and you can be influencing wherever you want to influence. So the truth is, in terms of influence, my involvement in Nigeria continues. I founded the leadership school 21 years ago, the Daystar Leadership Academy. Over 45,000 people have come through the school. The school is still running. I take classes. I took a class last week, right, leveraging technology. The church is there. I teach in the church. I still preached the sermon at the church yesterday, leveraging technology. I am part of the School of Politics, Policy and Governance, founded by Dr. Obi Ezekwesili. I take my classes. I'm part of the faculty. There's a new leadership school that just founded. I'm part of everything. So I am still fully involved in Nigeria. I'm passionate about Nigeria. I will always be a Nigerian. The influence continues. Physical presence, I'm moving around the world a whole lot more now. In a few days, I'll be in the UK delivering an academic lecture, at Brunel University, and so on. So it's just the season is different. But because of the technology and my passion for the development of Nigeria, my work in Nigeria continues.
Dr. Adeyemi, well, the thing is, because you're such a busy person, anytime we have you like this, we want to throw in all the questions we can throw in at you, hoping that you get to answer all of them, and I know you're smiling right now. But I have more like a double-barrel question, if you can do this real quick, because I know Chamberlain wants to chip in something before you go. This question has to do with, did democracy develop all the other nations that we look up to, so to speak? I mean, the United Kingdom, the USA, and other democracies. Was it democracy that developed them? That's on one side. And the question I wanted to ask you is, in that national conversation or discourse we talked about, what's the role of the local governments and the traditional institutions? While we are waiting for the national to start, can we begin the conversations from our local wards, our traditional institutions, and build up from there to the national?
Fantastic questions. Thank you so much. So, what's the role of democracy in the development of Western civilization? It's just simply that fact. See, I read the book titled Why Nations Fail, right? Written by two professors of economics. The major idea that they found out in their research is that in practically every nation, you have a small group of people called the elite. They use political power to channel economic resources to benefit themselves. What Western countries were able to do was to limit the power of that elite group. The elite class will always be there. But once they brought in that value of equality, you were created by God, I am created by God. I cannot be a slave to you. In the same country. And they compelled the elite to accept it. You can still have your dreams, you can still deploy your skills and so on, do industry, prosper, but don't enslave other citizens. That is what created the platform for their prosperity. So the child of a nobody can become somebody. And Elon Musk can come as an immigrant to the United States and become the richest man in the world. Okay? So, democracy, yes, because of the values promoted by democracy, that equality, that freedom to dream and to fulfill your dreams, democracy, yes, contributed to their development, economic prosperity, especially because people are able to try to dream and fulfill their dreams. The second question is very important. Okay, we may not have control over the federal government. Can we start from our communities? Can we start with our local government? Honestly, I think that's the best place to start. You know, we were cracking a joke here yesterday, or 2 days ago. Here in the US, you can actually go to the front of the White House and take a picture with it. If you have time, you can book several months ahead and actually go on a tour of the White House. That's where the president lives and works. So we were saying that in Nigeria, you can't even see Aso Rock, right? Not to talk of going to take a picture with it. So I'm saying here that instead of trying to deal with the presidency, yes, we can actually walk up to our local government chairmen, councillors, leaders in our communities. We can have, not to confront them, not to embarrass them. We can go from a development perspective and have discussions with them. Look, this local government is not your local government, it is our local government. What's your vision for our local government? Okay, so how can we jointly contribute to the fulfillment of that vision? This is our own vision. This is what we want our primary schools to look like. Primary schools are under the control of local governments. Government schools are run down. It's so painful because I went to a public school. The public schools are wretched. Now, some states are doing fantastically well, right? But in some other places, you will weep when you see the schools. We should not sit down. That's where the erosion of our power starts from, and that's where we need to begin to use the power. If you can't have a vision for the whole Nigeria, can you have for your streets? Can you have for your community? Can we discuss with the leaders of our community and then agree on how to make those dreams happen? Some shifts, maybe then actually we will understand better the changes that need to happen in Nigeria. I'll give you an example. A former commissioner told me many years ago when in their state they wanted to generate power. But the law then said if you generated anything more than 10 megawatts, it had to be approved by the federal government. They were pleading and begging with the federal minister for power. They did not get any approval. This was some 20 years ago or so. I'm grateful that now something has shifted there. So Nigerians need to pay attention there. There are things your local government can do. There are things that our states can do if they had the power to do those things. But you have this constitution that is a liability, honestly, that is limiting, stifling. Those are the things we need to discuss, right, at the national discussion that I spoke about. But I think we will get better results if we start from our communities. We should not sit down in our houses and be complaining when there's supposed to be a local government chairman and there are councillors there. Let's start the conversation. It's our country, it's our community. Let us build it. Honestly, because leaders deal with vision, we deal with possibilities. I do not see Nigeria as being a hopeless situation. It is not. I'll tell every young person. I mentioned earlier on, 25 years ago, Naira was 22 to the dollar. Now it is 1,000. And some of us tried. Some of us tried right there. Many other people did. It depends a lot on your mindset. Once you focus, see, the glass is either half empty or half full for you. Once you focus on the emptiness of the glass, you will be feeling hopeless and powerless. The people that focus on the fullness, even if it's just some small drops that are there, their creativity will kick in. They will multiply the small drops of water and create wealth for themselves. Young people should not give up on Nigeria. Nigeria, we're looking at problems. Those problems are actually opportunities. For some of us, it's easier to prosper in Nigeria than it is elsewhere. I'm saying that because I've been teaching people entrepreneurship for 20-something years now. I have seen some people with that entrepreneurial mindset focus on how to solve problems for people in Nigeria. I've seen them prosper. They could have prospered a lot more than they did. Government policies, unpredictability, disruption in the environment, too much. But in spite of that, they have tried. We must not lose hope on Nigeria. Honestly, I believe that we have an amazing opportunity to build a new Nigeria. We need to create it, a new Nigeria, a developed one.
Yes, indeed, Dr. Sam Adeyemi, Strategic Leadership Consultant. Thank you very much indeed for your time here today.
Thank you so much, Chamberlain. It's been a pleasure.
All right.